All right. It says we're live. I'm going with it. Hello, everybody. Kay Crystal Griffith here. How are you guys today? We had lots of snow here in the Rockies, so it's always fun days to snuggle up, turn on the fireplace, and just have some downtime because not only do our bodies need that, our emotions need that. So welcome back to another digest of emotions, wisdom, and your body. All this year, 2021, we are working through 365 emotions, and we are on day 26 today. Can you believe it? So here's your disclaimer. I'm not a doctor. I don't play one on a social media platform. What I do have is a master's in adult education, as well as 2 inner healing certifications and several accreditations. And this is really just for edification, education, and encouragement. So what's our word today? So we have an interesting word, and it was really hard to research this one. So it's the word timid. And people use timid and shy absolutely simultaneously, interchangeably. It is quite entertaining. And so I really had to dive deep into finding more information on this one. So timid itself is showing a lack of courage or confidence, easily frightened, lacking in boldness or determination, like a timid mouse, think in terms. Now, the difference between shy and timid is that shy is the easily frightened piece, while timid is lacking the courage or the confidence to stand up to what's frightening them. So you can see how they partner together almost. So not in a good way, by the way. So for today, we're going to use both those definitions, and we're going to use the words interchangeably. So it is a negative emotion. I tried to figure out a spin for the positive. There was none. So if you are timid or you are shy, it can really cause some devastating self-esteem effects. But I really want to dive into a little more on the brain function today than we normally do, because they have made some really cool discoveries in your brain about shyness. So shyness is naturally built into our brain. It's a mechanism for dealing with stress. So if we see stress, we tend to back away, right? Or shy away. Now, there are also researches that is saying our shyness is actually caused by our genes. Now, in the research that I could find, I didn't find too much to support that idea. But what I did find was Vicky too, and she shares a stimulation of something that's strange and risky could be an input that triggers several psychological outputs, such as anxiety, such as an increase in muscle tension, heart rates going up, blood pressure going up. And the studies have shown that our amygdala, which we have had plenty of conversation around, which is at the top of the brain stem itself, remember, mainly regulates the emotions of what? Fear and anxiety. And most common, people will be triggered by some response of fear and anxiety. And then what happens? The amygdala hijacks the frontal lobe. Now, shy people seem to be more sensitive to stress. People who associate uncomfortable feelings of anxiety with certain occasions that give them stress, perhaps, and this goes beyond just getting up to give a speech on a stage now, okay? That's just a nervousness issue, and pretty much, honestly, even the best speakers probably get still a little butterfly here or there, right? But this is really almost the phobia line of shyness, that they would not get on that stage for whatever that fear of anxiety is, that would put them back into a stress-related induced trauma. Now, the process that combines the amygdala and the hippocampus is part of this stress cycle. And then when a stimulus is triggered, it actually spreads the feelings of fear and anxiety to other parts of the brain, almost like a virus, right? So it hijacks the front and then it kind of spreads out to the brain in a variety of other places. And what happens? That then leads to the sympathetic nervous system getting triggered. And now you have the fight, flight, freeze, or faint. Now, in the case of shy people, they tend to quickly associate feelings of anxiety and fear with situations that present no danger and no risk. For example, maybe class discussions or a party, or the other day, somebody ordering food. Major stress, borderline panic attack. And it is really hard to see that happen in people that you care about, because you're like, okay, we're just here to order food. They're not going home with us. We're not going to stay and eat. We just need to order food. And so we really have to be conscientious that when people are having this stress reaction by shyness, timidity, anxiety, fear, that we are not invalidating them and not dismissing their feelings. We're just trying to help them walk through it. So how can I best help you order the food? So you don't want to also take it on for them. So then there's that fine line of codependency where you want it more for them than they want it for themselves. So it is a really fine balancing act to all of this. Now, excuse me. So we really want to look at unusual shyness in children. So this would be where it falls under too much emotion. And that really is actually showing differences in their brains as a typical kid versus an unusually shy kid. And they've imaged their brain and they're seeing differences in this unusual shyness of the children, which is why they think it's being caused by the genes. So some people who are shy during childhood are shown new people or things, and they display significantly higher activity in the amygdala than people who have been unusually outgoing as children. Maybe they're social butterflies, right? Infants who are adventurous towards new things are considered to have an uninhibited temperament, right? But infants who are scared of new people and of things are considered to have an inhibited temperament. You'll see this also very clearly on for kiddos who are on the spectrum, to have that inhibited temperament, because they can't process all the social cues and all the social awareness and surrounding. So both these temperaments are considered to be inherent. So though not all adults who were inhibited during childhood turn out to be shy, so they could outgrow it, so to speak. Now, individuals with greater frontal brain activity may actually express more emotion of fear. So when that shyness is being hijacked by the amygdala, or because it's already inherent by the genes, right? They then may express more emotion of fear, which means they're going to have a more unusual, higher level of shyness and more timidity, because they go together. Now, other studies indicate that when dopamine is released, then the brain reacts by engagement, overcoming timidity and shyness. So they are doing a lot of studies to see if that unusual shyness is actually related to a gene that is indicating a lower level of dopamine release within the body. I mean, it's amazing, the science to all of this, isn't it? Okay, so really got to figure out these teleprompter things, right? So how do we overcome if we can't just change the brain? We can't flip it. We can't flip a switch, and we don't necessarily want to take dopamine, which there are some great supplements for dopamine. Don't just go buy them. Do your research on them. Happy to help you with that. But what can we do from our own perspective of how could we walk into more confidence, more boldness, and not shrink back in fear or shyness or timidity? Well, one, stop avoiding or stop self-labeling. So the more that you say to yourself and out loud, oh, I'm shy, or oh, that's scary, or I don't think I want to do that, then what are you doing? You are just reinforcing that in your brain. And so super important that we speak life, right? Because in our tongue is what? Death and life, cursing and blessing. And we need to make sure that we are blessing ourselves and those around us, right? Remember our 3 things of why I do this every night with you guys: edification, education, and encouragement. Same concept. So everything that you speak, you're declaring over yourself and those around you. So that would also fall under stop self-sabotaging. If you know that you have an issue with a situation, then get help. Ask for help. There is absolutely nothing wrong with mental health appointments, folks. I'm here to tell you that. And not just because I tend to fall into that scope a little bit, just with what I do with inner healing and coaching, but it really does make a difference when there is no stigma to people knowing they need help and they're going to get it. It was brought to my attention today, well, we can only cover 4 mental health appointments. But what if somebody needed 10? And what if somebody needed 20? And what if somebody needed 2? And like, why is there a limit on them? And is that per week? Is that per month? Is that per year? It is crazy the way that insurance comes up, and really it is almost in a reactive situation instead of a proactive situation. And so I just want to encourage you guys, please seek out help if you need it. And that is the biggest thing you can do to overcome self-sabotaging. All right. The other one is knowing your strengths. I guarantee you, every single person who seems to think that they're shy or seems to think that they're timid, they have more strengths than they realize. And I was actually made a post today similar to that, in which we're just identifying ourselves as experts, right? So to be an expert, you have to have 10,000 hours in a topic area. Now, a lot of people will go, oh, well, I haven't gotten my bachelor's, or I haven't gotten my master's, or I haven't. Guess what, folks? Just because you have a degree does not make you a subject matter expert, because you only need usually 60 credit hours to get your bachelor's. Your master's, less, because you're more focused for 2 years in the specific subject area. Still not 10,000 hours. Even if you write every single page about the topic, still not 10,000 hours. So I want you to think for a second to be a subject matter expert. Well, one, are you a son? Are you a daughter? Are you a husband? Are you a wife? Are you a grandma? Are you a grandfather? Are you a sibling? Are you a cousin? Are you an aunt? Are you an uncle? Because guess what? If you've been any of those for more than 5.5 years, you are automatically a subject matter expert. So by the time you are 6 years old, you are already a subject matter expert. Isn't that cool? So 10,000 hours is about 5.5 years worth of data and 8 hours worth of context. And there's a whole formula to it. But I just think it's really cool that we don't think about what we're actually subject matter experts in. Could you go and talk about you being a man or a woman for 30 minutes? Oh, yeah. Yeah, you could. Easily, right? Could you talk about how to do hair? Or could you talk about how to fix a car? Or could you talk about how to shovel a walkway the right way so you don't actually fall on your bum like I did? Could you talk, I mean, any number of those things, right? And all of those times and hours add up to make you full of strengths and actually more of a subject matter expert than you think. Isn't that cool? All right. So the other one is choose relationships carefully. You know, what we're being influenced by absolutely influences everything in our life, even the music that we listen to. You know, I grew up in the 80s and rap was just coming to the scene, and I never could actually understand them. I don't know if that was my hearing or what, but I couldn't, it wasn't my thing. Now, there were some Christian bands that I listened to that were they would rap some, still never understood those parts of the song, but I was walking in faith that they weren't saying anything bad. But then they would do their version of headbanging and I listen to them now and I'm like, oh, those were so not rock bands. And so I laugh at that. But you know, the influence of what we're listening to is super important, including the lyrics, even if you're not listening to them. So what you read, what you listen to, what you see, what you're watching, and really the conversations that you're having with people around you are super important to mind our tongues, right? So also remember that one bad moment does not mean a bad day. Okay, taking a poll here. How many of you burnt the cookies before? Okay, both hands. Yep, you burnt the cookies, right? Even in the toaster oven, I burnt the cookies, right? And does that ruin my whole day? It used to. It did. It used to, before I really got my heart healing going about 8 years ago, and I really thinking everything was indicative of something that I had done. Like somehow it was my new identity that I was a horrible cook. I am here to tell you folks right now, I am here to own the fact I do not like to cook. I can cook. I can cook some dishes very well, but I am not a chef. I was not made to be a chef, and I do not play one on TV, and I do not pretend to play one in my home. So, you know, just owning what they're not really weaknesses, but just owning that that's not what I'm good in, and I'm okay with that. We're going to move on, right? You know, obviously we get fed and things are fine. So they don't have to be your identity, because that's not what God made you, as a bad cookie maker or a bad cook or a bad house cleaner. That is not what God sees. God sees you as precious, as a jewel, as literally precious and treasured and cherished and a masterpiece. Royal. That's how God sees you. Now, what are you frightened by? Because when you really can identify why you're timid, what's causing you to be shy and frightened from that aspect, then you can also own it, be aware of it, and walk through it with help. Have someone to confide in those fears, right? So they're not going to use them against you for sure. And then make sure, the crazy as this sounds, get a healthy amount of exercise. I have recently been increasing my walking. We even hit the mall today, even with our snow, because I was like, I can't sit here another day. I've got to go walk because I knew my body was craving movement and we just weren't getting enough in the house. And so that stress release, that opportunity to get that out of your system releases better hormones and endorphins and all kinds of other fun things that actually make your brain work better. So we definitely want you to be moving in some form of exercise. Now, case in point, something to remember. Here's your writer downer. Timidity can fuel boldness. So when you know that you're timid about something and something's frightening you, you then can rise up and you can challenge that within you to say no more and take the bull by the horn, so to speak, and keep on going. So it can fuel your boldness. You can boldly engage in behaviors that you expect others to do. But because of where you've been, that shyness or that timidity, you might not have expected it from yourself. Boldness also grows as you improve. And that improvement is a result of stepping in to untested behaviors. Repetition reinforces them. And then guess what? You have new neuroplasty growing in your brain that then makes you go in totally different directions in a positive way. Our brain is amazing. So what are our verses? So there actually were 10 instances that timid was in the Bible. I thought that was kind of interesting. So Isaiah 7:4, take heed and be quiet. Fear not, and let thy heart be timid. And let not thy heart be timid. I'm just going to say that whole thing one more time. So take heed and be quiet. Fear not, and let not thy heart be timid. Isaiah 35:4. Say to them that are of a timid heart, be strong, fear not. And 1 Thessalonians 5:14. This one's got some edits to it from this translation. We earnestly urge you, believers, admonish those who are out of line, the undisciplined, the unruly, the disorderly. Encourage the timid, those who perhaps lack spiritual courage. Help the spiritually weak and be patient with everyone. Always controlling your tongue and temper. So what are you going to do with this new information about being timid and shy? Was it really new information for how your brain was working and how dopamine can help you? And, I think that's just such a great idea that we have some ideas on how to help ourselves. We don't necessarily have to go visit pharmaceutical, but we have ways that we can work through the ways we've been self-sabotaged, either by our genes, which we inherited, or by ourselves, by our labels, right? So how has being timid shown up in your life? Has it been good or bad? And how can you transform this by wisdom, understanding, application as you walk forward in it? So take the scripture and put your name in there. So we say to Janet, and we say to John, and we say to Rosie, and we say to Pat, those who are of a timid heart, be strong, fear not, right? So don't worry, I will post this in our chat. Go live, share with us what you learned about yourself tonight, about being timid. And tomorrow's word is self-sabotage. That infiltration of our fears, anxiety, timidity through our decision-making and all the agreements that we tend to make to keep ourselves victims at times. So how do we break those off? So join us back tomorrow for more emotions, wisdom in your body, and register at K Crystal Griffith to receive more insights and your feeling wheel. So glad you guys were able to join us today. Take care.